So I hope everybody got the email from Lori with the attachment specifically about the
grab out of the copier.
Kind of very draft
some sheets. Thank you.
Sheet of it. The idea here is to run through, and there is some sections here like the purpose and source of funding that I think needs to be better crafted or written better. But what I'd really like to make sure that we have is the stuff down below, like the eligibility and if anybody's a wordsmith or wants to take on that project of putting or fixing the purpose and the source of funding, I would welcome that. I cobbled something together, but I think the source of funding specifically needs to get a little bit more, and maybe Becky can add something to that so that we're being honest on it, where I was kind of guessing. And the purpose, perhaps somebody can, we can take it for what it is, or if somebody feels strongly that it needs to be expanded upon, feel free to hop on that. If we scroll down towards the eligibility, let me back up. The conversation last week was, let's look at those two samples. One, Marcy, thank you for sharing that one. And then another one that we had, and the two names, of course, are escaping me right now, of the two programs. On the face of it, their eligibility and their purpose and the other things looked like they probably were written together in a bar over beers. Well, I guess not during COVID, but it seemed like very, very similar what they were looking to do with a few nuanced changes. The major differences came about when you looked at how they were going to dole out the money and what the criteria was. One of them was, quite frankly, and actually I was shocked when I went through the process on both of them as if I was an employer and because I wanted to see what they're asking. And one of them I was shocked when I got to the end and was about to hit submit. And it said, you're accepted, but I don't have a business in Charlotte. I kind of lied through that just so I could see the next things, and had to. And that one, basically, once you set everything in, as long as you meet the criteria, every day they were going to do a lottery of the applicants, and whoever got that lottery that day would get it. So it literally was, they called it another thing other than a lottery. I think they called it a draw, but it quite literally, they were doling out the money based on a lottery. The other one had much more in terms of what are you going to use it for? What's the problem? What money have you spent? And then they also had almost a budget of the project, how much, so we could see, and I believe somebody brought that up last week, let's have some skin in the game, or at least have an idea of that. How much have you put in? How much have others put in? Is that committed dollars, or is it, what was the word they used? Either committed or you have it in hand. So there's a little bit more involved in terms of making sure that the money would be spent on something that I think in the future we could go back and say, hey, this is what it was used for. This was the representation of what it would be used for. That one is what I based this on, making the assumption that I don't think any of us wanted it to be just a lottery where get a ticket and you get it, right? Okay. So with that there, what I'd like to do is we can go bullet point by bullet point. And if anybody has any changes, we can make the changes or have a discussion. And then we just kind of work our way through it, hopefully getting to a consensus at the end.
I'm sorry, Steve,
yeah.
Can I jump in just on the,
of course,
the lottery component of it? I guess I'm interested to hear what the vision of the group is if demand exceeds available funds. So my only concern with not a lottery, I'm not suggesting the daily lottery. I don't know that that's necessary, but my concern, if you don't have some level of randomness, if your demand does exceed available funds, then it can start to raise concerns about favoritism or the perception of favoritism regarding who ended up getting selected over somebody else. So I just want to lift that up for this
that's a fair point.
to consider and see what others' thoughts are on it.
So are we just suggesting a first come, first served?
My suggestion would actually be an application period. So let's say it's a 2-week window. And so just have everybody submit during that time. And it's not first come, first serve. Close the application window and then use a lottery system to determine who gets reviewed first. And so then you just go in order, and then the funds go until there's no more funds.
Okay.
I'd be fine with that. Like if we
that approach makes sense. It's not a lottery of randomly sending out money. It's a lottery to determine priority of consideration.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I can defend that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you, Becky. All right. The eligibility. Business must be headquartered or have a location within the town limits of Matthews. And we had put in all real property taxes had to have been paid in full through 2019. Because I think we just sent out, or the town, I believe Randy mentioned, the town just sent out bills. So let's just do in full through 2019. Anybody have any comments or requirements for changes on that?
Nope.
No. All right. The next one, which was in a question, was must have. I'd put in XX so we could discuss it. Randy's input is to have must have 50 or fewer employees to cap it. I'm fine with 50. Anybody have any thoughts in one way or another?
I'll just say why I put it in there is just thinking it's a small business focus, but that's somewhat of a random number. But if 50 employees kind of is often a reasonable cutoff for small businesses, but open to ideas.
My only question would be, is it 50 full-time?
Yeah, in fact, what I think I put in my comments, Lori, was 50 FTEs.
Yeah.
Full-time equivalent.
No, but
that could be tough though for restaurants, can it? Since the wait staff are part-time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so they would have 50 or fewer, so they could do it. They'd be eligible.
Right? Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so if you're looking at that bullet point, but then Randy made some comments about gross sales, minimum and maximum. If you had 50 employees, you could bust through that $2 million limit very quickly.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so Steve, maybe those two bullet points need to be considered together. The gross sales one and the employees. All I did was go through this and kind of think, well, here's what I think we were leaning towards. We're targeting small business. So I said, I put those kind of parameters in, but hey, it's in the eye of the beholder here.
And I think actually my suggestion was would be if we keep the 50, and it sounds like nobody's saying that that's wrong.
Right.
We would just want to move that to less than 5 million. Because that's the generally accepted rule of thumb is 100,000 per employee. So
I'm good with that.
Yeah. I like that because I could break the 2 million mark with just 7 or 8 employees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We skipped one though. The next one, the applicant entity must have been affected by COVID-19 and can clearly articulate how the proposed, this is kind of where, how the proposed solution or reason for the grant will solve a unique challenge that the pandemic has directly created. And we want it to be measured, or to be able to measure the effectiveness. I think that I tried to encapsulate a lot of our discussions, I believe, that Tim had and some others were concerns that were brought up. Any challenges?
Related to that, and I don't think it's a different subject, but it's tied into us. One of those programs said that they reserve the the right to be able to come back and follow up with the recipient, to interview as a
believe I had that down
insurance
lower.
or something. Is that in there somewhere else?
Yep. I think, I'd be surprised if I'd left that out because I that was on my notes that it was big. Shoot, did I?
I don't see it, Steve.
If I did not, then I apologize. And let's add that in.
Okay. It might go into that bullet point.
Yeah. The intent was to have that in. I'm sorry, Randy.
Mm-hmm.
How would you guys like that to be stated?
On one of them, why don't we just copy?
Yeah.
Just a second.
There was wording in there on the one with the Charlotte Center City partners. There was wording there about that. There's a sentence in there.
Let me find it just a second.
No, you go on. Let me go find it.
You want to? Okay.
Yeah, I'll find it.
All right. Applicant entity must have been established before January 1st, 2020.
Yeah.
Any reservations?
Most applications that I've seen, the business or entity has been in existence for approximately 12 months prior to the eligibility period. So I have not seen a justification as to why, other than it, I guess, clearly articulates that this was an established business in the community prior to this happening. You know, I think it could be hard for someone to talk about gross receipts or that kind of thing if they had only been in existence for 2 months before Corona hit. But, you know, I don't know that there's a hard and fast rule that it has to be closer to the 12 months, but I just want to point out that this time frame is significantly shorter than a lot of others that I've seen.
Yeah, I would.
This is
I
from
would
the
go to
PPP.
January 1st, 2019. I mean, if we're asking the next bullet point for show us your sales for 2019.
You have a 1 year under your belt.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I don't think this is arguable, but I don't think our intent is to award money for a startup business of any kind. In fact, giving them funding for their startup.
When did well, I'm just thinking of places that opened up downtown. How long has what's it called, the Portrait Gallery? That was last year they started, right?
Yes.
So they would be out?
I don't know when, and it could have been a little bit longer than that on a Portrait Gallery. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
It does fly.
My only thought with the two, one of them is so that we make sure that there's there's a size component to it. From what I've seen in the other programs, that applicant entity establishment criteria is so that nobody created it when they heard that this might be coming out, right?
Right.
And so that solves the January 1 solves for that. The next one they're solving for two different criteria or eligibility items.
So the gross sales really trumps the date.
It really, I mean, ultimately it does. Yeah.
I mean, because if you're looking for the 2019 numbers, you can't be in existence in a shorter duration than that.
That's right. That's why those go together.
So do we just change the January 1 to January 1, 2019?
I would.
I mean, to your point, Steve, is it possible someone could have started June of 2019 and generated enough money in between that time period and still filed and could be deemed worthy of this application?
Yeah, I don't know. That's where to be frank, the next one, the gross sales one, is the one that I had the most trouble even including.
Well, if you ditch gross sales, you need to move it back to January 1, 2019. But if you keep the gross sales in there, the January 1, 2020 really is kind of a moot point, but you may get a one-off that opened last June and happened to capitalize on the market and made some money.
And Portrait Gallery was October of 18.
Thanks, Marcy.
What are you guys using as the date for established? That's a
What's
kind of
that?
squishy phrase. What are you using as the date of establishment?
In my mind, it's the date that you file with the Secretary of State.
Yeah, and the Secretary of State of North Carolina, you can go to their website and look up businesses and see when they're established.
And that's legally when you're
When you were born.
like an LLC or a.
I just think that probably should be clarified in the documentation, so you don't have someone arguing that they open doors without needing some kind of Secretary of State authorization. Yeah.
Okay.
You just want to define established in that line, in that bullet point, as established by filing with the state or something of that nature.
Yeah.
I have a
why don't we add that?
question tying in with all of this.
Yeah.
Just to make sure I understand. So we're talking about the possibility of doing a lottery for the batch that comes in by a certain date or something like that. Is that correct?
No, the lottery is just so who we would review. So let's say we had 1,000 applicants.
Yeah.
We're only going to review 25. It would be a lottery of who we're going to review.
But in reviewing them, we can say, oh, they said they were established January 1st, 2020, but the fact of the matter is they didn't really even open their doors, so we don't have to take them, right? I mean, we're still going to have some flexibility with whether or not they get the money based on what they say in their application.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, in terms of tweaking these 2 bullet points, is knowing that we're going to have some ultimate say, do we want to word it in such a way that, maybe we'll get a few more applicants, but we're giving a little more leeway in their gross sales and when they establish and everything like that? Because we could look at somebody and go, oh, they opened their door, they filed with the Secretary of State in December, but they never did anything till March. Am I making sense?
No, you are. And I'm wondering, because you bring up a good point, this is just for eligibility. It's not for the review. What if we removed the gross sales bullet point? I'm thinking of it. I don't know if there's any out here, but I'm just trying to think of a hypothetical situation where you have a daycare center that was established in November. They didn't have any revenue because they were going to open in the spring. They caught the kibosh. They couldn't get in, and now they're saying, "Hey, we're going to make these changes."
Right. We have this lease. We have this equipment we bought. We rented, bought, whatever you do.
And we're trying to solve a problem, which is one of the ones that we listed up or raised up very early on.
Well, did any of the other programs have sales minimums and maxes?
I took this one right off of, I don't know, the paper to show me which one it was. But yes, I took this off of, and they both had mins and maxes.
Okay, how about this is what I've done for a while. I'm a solopreneur, work at home, and maybe I sell widgets out of my home. I sell essential oils. Let's just pick that out. I make $50,000 a year out of it. Is that someone who we'd consider for a grant?
Some that I have seen specifically excluded home-based businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So under that scenario, they would not be eligible, but I think that would need to be spelled out.
I think it would need to be spelled out. The Charlotte Center City one did say it was storefront businesses. Although it can be arguable that there are some sizable businesses that are not storefront. What's a storefront to suggest retail only, not a wholesale distributor, not a Sweetwater Logistics?
What if we? Oh, I'm not eligible anyway, brother.
Okay.
What if we did what if we changed that January 1, 2019, or change it to 2019, and we reduce that must be at least down to, I don't know, 40 or
50,000.
50,000?
In
Because then
order
you-
to include what kind of people?
Those that, to John's point, those that started mid 2019, everything's getting ramped up and ready to roll. But that, because of when they started, because in essence, if we have January 1, 2019, and we have $100,000 in 2019, chances are you just wiped out everybody who started in 19, but really got operational 18. If you look at small business and how that works, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking go ahead.
I would say how it's written right now, if you do leave it at 2020 and then you lower the 100,000 to 50,000 in 2019, it does seem to indicate that you could have started in 2019, and as long as you ramped up enough to have generated at least $50,000 in sales or revenue, then you would qualify. So I think we would cover the folks who perhaps started in 2019, as long as they got at least a bit of a start before the end of the year.
Yeah, but January 1, 2020, it would wipe them out, right?
Well, have to be established before January 1, 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. Oh, so yeah. Okay. Then let's just drop that 100 to 50.
Is that consensus?
Yes.
I feel we're being generous, but hey, it's Christmas in August.
But to Randy's point now, you potentially are getting into the range of a home-based business. Are they excluded or included?
I think let's take that one when we get down to liquor stores, check cashing ad agencies, and
Gotcha.
I would suggest we add those there. That there would be my opinion, but.
Lori, I sent you a wording that I copied from Charlotte Center City Partners. There's a couple of places in there about it. I just did a cut and paste.
Do you like the one over the other?
They say it. They use those words for addressing two different things about confidentiality of information and a need for follow-up. I think it's mainly the need for follow-up that we want to add in here.
Grant recipients will be required to respond to a survey documenting how the funds were utilized, as well as participate in interviews to share their lessons learned.
You like that?
I'm good with it.
I thought that sounded good. Yeah.
If that is the consensus, I'll not get that because I'm on a different screen, but I'll add that in afterward.
Okay.
All right.
I like that.
We do. I don't know if you guys even know, but Brett came on, so he's here too. He hasn't said anything yet. Do you want to go and just see if there is a full consensus on each of these items, or do you want to do that at the end? How would you like to do before we sit down?
I thought we were doing that as we go, but we can go back. Brett, we've gone over so far.
He's here for most of it. He just hasn't said anything yet.
Okay.
Sorry.
I've got you guys on my phone, and I've got I've got it pulled up on my computer behind it. So that's the reason it probably I look a little weird, but I've got you guys on my phone and computer. So
You and Randy are the fans. Okay. So then to Lori's question, are we, I've of the understanding we are, but is anybody not in agreement to where we are at now in agreement down through gross sales, and we're jumping onto that applicants cannot currently be engaged in bankruptcy proceedings?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
My suggestion back up a little bit earlier is, it talks about innovation, clearly proposed solution to a unique challenge. When we met last, we talked a bit about more of reimbursement for COVID-related expenses. If it is still the interest of the group to provide cost coverage for things like that, I would like to see that more clearly spelled out. I think how it's currently worded could create some confusion. I could see a business owner not feeling like we're going to think that hand sanitizer is a unique innovation to address this issue. So if we could perhaps be willing to consider both types of applications, just to be a little bit more clear in that earlier on the page.
I'm sorry, both types meaning what?
Like if somebody was, looking to to propose more of an innovative type solution, you know, that's certainly fine. But if someone is just saying, hey, I had to put up plastic barriers and buy masks and hand sanitizer, and man, if y'all could reimburse me for that, I'd love to take a part of this too. It would still help me out to just also spell out that those are costs associated with COVID that would also be eligible for reimbursement. Yep. So I think that's a little bit of the combining of the two different types of grants.
I agree with that. I like the more pragmatic, you know, what's the down and dirty of getting myself up and running, what I had to do to sort of survive the situation, the masks, the screens, the plastic, the whole 9 yards. I think there might be some people out there with really creative solutions, but the other folks are just trying to survive, and they've incurred costs just to sort of stabilize the business.
In all I'm reading is it's a proposed solution to a unique challenge, right? So buying hand sanitizer and putting up a screen, that's a solution to the unique challenge, right? I think
that's all you're asking for. Yeah.
So if we add just the sentence at the end that prior, prior receipts or receipts for expenses after March 1st will be considered. Is that what you're looking for, Becky?
I don't have the exact wording in front of me. Let me see if I can track it down. If you want to move on, I'll see if I can find something that fits what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's expenses related to COVID that they would have not normally had to absorb.
Yes. Thank you, John.
All right. Are we in agreement that they can't be in bankruptcy?
Yes.
Yeah, right. I want to amend something there on the bullet point before. Lori, I think in your editing, you took out the no greater than $5 million in sales.
Thank you.
Nice catch. So now the things that we're not supporting, I think if anybody wants to take any of those off, but I believe we do want to add home-based businesses to that list. If we could, or
again, I go back to we're going to have some type of control over what we approve. And I'm not sure, I am not sure at all how I feel about a home-based business. So, I mean, if it were added, I wouldn't go, oh, that's a bad idea. But I keep going back to, okay, for sure I want liquor stores, check cashing agencies, and all those in all of the ones listed. But if there's a home-based business and they're making oils and we go, this really doesn't warrant funding, then we don't provide the funding.
But we also open it up to asking why, right?
Well, yeah.
Or do we nip that in the bud?
Let me give you another example here, because I love home-based businesses, but I'll give you some examples where if you exclude them, you may not have intended to. There could be a heating and air conditioning service guy who works out of his home office. His truck is parked at his home. Could be a plumber that does that. It could be some other people who are not getting invited into people's homes. They had to change some things up. They work out of a home office because it saves them a lot of money, and the zoning allows them to do it. Then I don't know if we want to exclude those necessarily.
You sold me.
And I'll, I'm like Steve. I'm not applying for this, but I'll use like our business as an example. We are a full-on advertising agency. Our lease was up in May, and we just decided while we were looking, it was stupid to pay rent on a space that we weren't using. So we went ahead, moved everything out, said everybody work from home. We now are moving back into a new space, but in the interim, 3 or 4 months, that we were still an agency, still going strong, but just everybody was working out of their houses. Are we a home-based business?
Well, I think if you put the home-based business limitation in there, the next thing you would have to ask for is a lease. And I think or a lease or a whatever, I think it adds complexity that perhaps, I don't know, based on what Randy said, I think you're right, Randy. There's probably a lot more of those than we know.
There are. They're a
Right.
big
And what
part
I'm
of the
saying
economy
is,
that
if
we
you
don't
asked me
see.
for a lease a month ago, I didn't have one. I have one now because we took advantage of this time to find the new place. But
Sure. No, I understand that.
yeah.
I'm kind of the opinion that we don't add it. Do we have a consensus? Randy,
Don't add it as an exclusion, you're saying.
yeah.
I guess my question is what expenses would a home-based business have that would potentially be COVID related
Well, if I'm a
that they
plumber,
needed?
If I'm a plumber, I now have to get PPP. I have to figure out there's probably things they had to get so that they can go into people's houses safely and to convince the public that it's okay for them to go in. And we had a construction guy stop by the house. He had a whole box of booties and all sorts of other things that he, donned before he walked around the outside of our house. I'd imagine there's some, and a
There
lot of them
could
are,
be. I think we'd be hard pressed to maybe name them now, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that if a home-based business applies, we have to grant them money.
That's my point.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
We
my
we can
point.
still say, hey, your need is not really passing muster. It was not well documented. It doesn't convince us that you need it, so we could still turn down a home-based business.
Yeah.
Not having them on the exclusion list doesn't mean that we have to accept every grant that comes.
Yeah,
And-
we had to supercharge the internet service for a few of our folks who were working in video, for instance. That it just at home we needed more bandwidth.
And I guess the only thing that I would encourage is keeping as much subjectivity out of the evaluation process as possible. Again, to try to insulate against any appearances of favoritism or, so and so got it and so didn't. So leaving it up to, let's just see what they submit. I'll be honest, I could see a lot of suggestions of, well, I run a home-based business and I needed a new computer during this time period to, better reach out electronically to my customer base. How do we feel about that?
Yeah. Oh, Becky, the other thing is that we may need to check with Jay Camp on this one. I don't want to digress, but home-based businesses in Matthews are regulated to the point where technically you're only supposed to be home-based with the occupant of the home and have no employees. And I'm wondering, had we had a home-based business say, hey, I've got up all these numbers and they came up with 5,000 doing sales calls, are we in a problem if we're sort of giving money to an entity that is in violation of our town ordinance?
But I also feel that if we say to them, you're in violation of our town ordinance, we can't give you the money.
I see what you're saying.
I mean, if somebody was in violation of the town ordinance, I'm assuming we wouldn't give them the money and we'd probably go, hey, this is why, and leave it at that. But
I champion home-based businesses, but I will admit there's probably not going to be many of them that are good candidates for this grant.
What if we had the minimum? If you scroll up, did I put in a minimum employee count?
No.
I have seen some that excluded sole proprietors. So you would need to have at least 2.
so
Is that
must
so-
have at least 2.
So two total employees, and which can include yourself. One can include yourself.
How do you document how many employees they have?
Payroll.
W-2.
Boy. Yeah, but we're going to ask for that as part of the documentation too.
But what if we said something like must have a minimum of 2 employees and 50 or fewer, or must have, rephrase it so we have a minimum.
Mhm.
And if we put the minimum wherever we think the minimum would be, that would make it difficult to include home businesses. We're kind of solving the problem, but still leaving that option open.
I would say, yeah, 2 to 50 full-time equivalent employees. Maybe that works. Does that work for folks?
Yeah, instead of fewer than 50.
I'm wondering if
Consensus?
Steve's bringing up something here.
Well, my thought is if we have the gross sales in there, do we have to say anything about the FTEs?
Well, the FTE, the minimum FTEs was just brought up in response to the issue of
No.
limiting home-based business.
Like if we took that bullet point out completely.
I'm fine with if we let's leave if we have consensus. Let's leave must have between 2 and 50. Let's not make this sausage any more spicier than it needs to be. All right, so we're the one that's in. If I can, if we'll jump back down, we're not going to change anything on. Does anybody want to add anything? Are there any to what's it eligible?
Are there any other vice businesses out there that we don't want to give money to?
Can I ask about I know this is common in a lot of them, but I'm not really sure about the pawn shops. Is that too much of a vice that you just don't want to give funding to? Is that the idea?
Do we have any in town?
I don't find a gun shop a vice, so I wouldn't find a pawn shop a vice, but that's
No.
that's your own, right?
I just copied it right from they both had the exact same.
Yeah.
We get a lot of comments about the what are they called? The
Massage parlor?
no, it's
Just careful, Steve. Don't fill in the
it's like-
blank. Let her finish.
they're online gaming establishments.
Oh, yeah.
Lori, do you know what I'm?
Yeah.
Do you have a better phrase?
I think that covers it. It's like arcade
Okay.
establishments.
Arcades, yeah.
We have one over by the Krispy Kreme, right? Over in front of the
Yeah.
Target.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that adult entertainment?
No, it's
That's something different.
gaming.
I'm a little naive
Yeah.
there.
Is Tassels in Matthews?
It is.
All right.
I mean, to jump in with that knowledge so quickly, but
According to my W-2, it is. No.
Do you? So you want to add in the gaming, or what do you call the arcade?
it can say adult gaming facility, maybe.
Okay.
There's a
Do adult entertainment and gaming businesses?
Well,
Or no, let's keep them separate.
yeah.
There's a specific word the state uses. Let's see if I can find it.
Because one of them I saw several of them, and I was in the news, are shut down because they are violating the governor's no gathering prohibition.
How many of those do we have in town?
I think at least 2, possibly more, because they're small and they kind of go in quickly and leave
Pop
quickly.
up like whack-a-moles.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, see, they call the one on East Independence Boulevard a city arcade. They call it an arcade.
Yeah.
So they're playing with words.
Yeah, because we've had people thinking it was like a
Yes, I can. Kids.
David Buster style or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arcade and gaming establishments.
Yeah, I think.
Say it that way?
Yeah, let's do that.
Arcade and gaming establishments.
Yeah.
Thanks, Randy. Any others that we want to add?
Feel like we are the morality police here.
I know.
That's the problem.
You want to get rid of liquor stores since that's a state run and
It's state
Yeah,
run.
yeah.
Like Tipper Gore back in the 80s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When it was, or the 90s.
How about we leave that in, and that can be what the commissioners say we have to remove, and then we're done.
What, liquor stores?
Or no. All right, applicants may, or we're good with that?
Yeah, I think we're good with that.
I'm good.
All right.
Yes.
Applicants may not apply for multiple entities.
So
The
you
reason-
mean multiple businesses, right? So
On behalf of multiple entities?
Yeah, so what this does is you have the applicant who's the owner, right? You don't have an agent who's putting in for 7 or 8 and then catching a fee.
service fee.
Mm.
What about owners who actually have multiple businesses?
I think they get caught up in this one.
I think so. I think it's
Yep.
that's where we want to spread the love here. We don't want to concentrate it with
Yeah.
any one person or two people.
Don't some owners own multiple restaurants up downtown and things like that?
Mm-hmm.
There are different partners in several
Yeah.
of them, so you could swing it that way, I suppose.
The 4 that I'm thinking of have the partners are there are different partner sets for each,
Okay.
except for one.
But there's
Who's
other-
applying for the grant, the individual or the entity?
I think on the app, I sent you the application part, right?
Applicant's name.
Yeah. So it's an individual on behalf of the.
Probably need to add a little bit more.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that-
entity.
No.
Mhm.
Yeah. Does anybody have a problem with that being in there?
No.
No, I
don't
think
have a real problem.
1 for 1.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think I say the ones, the rare instances where we might have an issue.
Yeah, if there is, we parse it at that time.
Yeah, cross our bridge when we get to it.
All right, Grant, that's one you just added, right? How the funds were utilized as well as per se. I'm fine with that. Anybody else have a problem?
Which one are you on, Steve?
The one just below, I'm sorry, the bottom one on the page.
Grant recipients will be required to respond to a survey.
Yes.
Documenting how the funds were utilized. So after the fact, we have a way to look,
Grant
We have a clock.
recipients will be required to document how the funds were utilized.
Okay.
Yeah.
Consensus.
Becky, there's no audit requirement with these funds, is there?
The county will be audited. So the more we can collect paperwork uniformly, just in case something is questioned, the better off we are. But the level of audit, as far as how deep they would dive, I do not know.
Becky, this would fall under the town audit that we would do this time next year, wouldn't it?
It would fall into that period. Our auditors at what they would typically do with something like this is they might ask for a selection of documentation that would be randomly drawn, and then it would just be ensuring that the paperwork matched what we laid out in the guidelines, would be the extent of what they were looking for. So long as it matched, then they would not dig further.
So do we need to
I was thinking
require,
the internal review that we've recently started doing that goes out to, now these are town funds, but that we've done in recently for town funds that were distributed, which I guess these are not specifically town funds, you could say, but
Yeah.
you could make it fall under the umbrella if you wanted.
Yeah, I would be a fan of requiring that businesses provide documentation, including copies of receipts for any monies that they are granted. So I think it's just the cleanest to just go ahead and make them have to provide that documentation to us. It keeps us covered and erases any questions, regardless of who's asking them.
It's kind of spelled out, right? And document how the funds were utilized.
I'd say
Or should we be
I think, to include providing copies of receipts or something that
Okay, yeah. Let's do it.
includes that. Yeah.
Yeah. So after
including receipts. Grant recipients will be required to document how the funds were utilized, including receipts. And then I would just say, as well as participate in interviews, period. Now I don't know if there's a reason why you have to share the lessons learned because I wasn't at the last meeting.
This is straight off of what the Charlotte Center City Partners did.
Gotcha.
I think I read into it. It was to understand how effective was this tossing money around program.
I'm fine with taking it down to just interviews, so then it's wide open what we can ask them.
Open to whatever we want.
Yeah.
Well, then I would say I would put in there in post-grant interviews to say if we're not talking about interviews necessarily before we grant.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that. And just a minor thing, Lori, grant needs to be capitalized. In the first word,
all of this will be corrected after that.
Got it. Okay.
So is that consensus on this last bullet now, the way it's currently
Yeah,
worked?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is everybody okay? Are there any other eligibility bullets that we're missing that people want to add?
Do we have in there anywhere about what it can't be used for? In other words, it can't be used, as we talked about earlier, about for replacing lost revenue.
I think that was you had to add this, right?
Yeah. We haven't gotten to that part yet, Randy.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there it is. I see it. Thank you.
So back to any others that we need to add or consider adding?
Keep it simple.
Rock and roll.
All right. If we can relate it to being current on all taxes, I think.
I thought that was in there.
One is, I was looking to add where. I'm sorry, what bullet is that?
First one.
Eligibility there.
First one.
Becky, are you meaning like federal and state as well?
No, if we just say must be current on all fees, permits, and taxes at the time of the application, it just covers except fees, permits, and taxes. We could consider except where extensions have been granted. Might be an exception to work in there.
All right, help me out. I've got applicants must be current in all fees, permits, and taxes. What was that clause that you had mentioned?
So let me just read. I'm looking at one. I just like the way it reads. Must be current on all fees, permits, and taxes as of the time of application, except when extensions have been granted by one of the localities due to COVID-19.
But this is what we had up there was through 2019.
That was just real property taxes, though.
Yeah, but I mean,
because you guys just sent out the bills, right?
You just sent out bills for real estate taxes, and those are due September 1st.
And we will be accepting applications after September 1st.
Right. So that's why I suggested the real estate property taxes through. I put all taxes through 2019 because are we going to say, okay, your real estate property tax is due September 1st,
But they're
and
still
it's
current.
September 15th when
But
you're
they're still current.
looking at your
They're still current.
Right. But if there are other fees or permits or things like that that have not been paid, this covers everything. And those most recent tax bills would just be considered current. So that wouldn't be something that somebody would be late on.
Yeah.
So we
So-
don't need that last thing that you have highlighted it.
Yeah, delete that. Yeah.
Correct.
Expenses?
Do you see that, Randy? How
I
it
did.
can be due on the, or the invoice is issued on the 1st, but it's not due, or it's not, you're still current.
It's actually technically due September 1st. You're not past due until the first week of January.
Okay. So we delete that?
I'm good with that.
You can hit backspace, Clore. There you go. Boom. All right.
Under applicants cannot applicant entity must have been established before January 1, 2020. And sorry, I just lost it. Just a second. And business must still currently be in operation.
How are we going to define that? How do they prove that?
There's going to be some level of attestation that goes along with this, where they are, attesting that they are, say, in fact, in operation. I think, again, what we're just trying to insulate against is maybe they were in business in 2019 and then they haven't actually been in business now. But again, just trying to insulate against anybody trying to collect funds that they're not actually eligible for.
Okay. Any more?
I'm good.
Cool. All right. So that's one section down. Boom. Let's go to criteria. A maximum grant of, I had XX, so we can all discuss. Randy suggested 10,000. And the actual award would be determined by somebody other than us, or somebody other than the applicant, rather. Anybody have any problem with 10,000 for the max? All right, let's leave that one in. Proposals evaluated in terms of innovation, context, maybe, relative to the impact of COVID, impact on the local community, economy, and the community. Any other criteria that relates to the project and the impact on the economic improvement to the town?
I like your broad coverage there. That it seems right, but okay.
I think this was off. Both of them had similar things, and I think I added that last. Any other criteria that we can blow it up to be, open it up.
Mm-hmm.
Any problems with that?
I would again like to advocate for just a practicality of simple language.
Yeah.
I do think innovation sends people thinking we're expecting something really unique and novel, when I think John said it earlier, some folks, these are just basic things that they're trying to do to keep the door open. So I'm okay leaving innovation, but I would like to see something added that makes it clear that it is also for expenses just directly related to responding to COVID.
Yeah, I think maybe the critical word there is hardship, and so it's expenses related to the hardship of COVID, because a lot of people, Becky's right, they're going to read innovation where everyone's, well, what's so innovative about me? I'm just trying to put food on the table and keep my business afloat. So maybe a little supplemental language in here would help and not be so flowery. I know bureaucrats tend to sort of want to puff it up a little bit, and we need to be simplifying it.
Yeah, I'm fine. If it comes down to, we have our last $10,000 to give out, and we have one that's saying they just want to be, or they're looking for, to be paid off or to be whatever reimbursed for having to buy I don't know, PPE, and the other 10,000 is looking for something that does actually have a bigger impact on the local economy. It's a bigger issue with the community. I think we would be trying to make a decision between the two, right?
No, if you go back to process, it's lottery numbers. So if number
No,
70,
I'm talking.
if number 73 was the, simple purchases, and the innovative one was number 74, you would be giving the funds to 73, and then there wouldn't be anything left for 74.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think what Lori's trying to do here is you could do proposals be evaluated in terms of, and then do bullet points, innovation, context to impact the community, impact the economics of the town, hardship directly related to the COVID. I think you could probably do better with some bullet points to sort of give a person a checklist.
Good. Let's do that. I like it.
All right. Oops. You guys are going to have to help me out there.
There we go.
There you go.
What do you want?
Innovation, context. I mean, you can just, I guess, cut and paste these up, right?
All right. Anything that's currently highlighted that you want to change? Let's do that first.
Okay.
Sounds like no. Sounds like you're.
Yeah. I think we just need to add to Becky's point, the one about, or maybe it was John's point, sorry.
Direct hardship attributable to building.
Yeah.
And I think that should be, I don't think innovation should be first.
So number one should be response to direct hardship on the business.
And I think, my personal opinion, it's not a big thing. I think innovation should be last.
Why don't we just get rid of it?
I would like to see it.
I think it should be in there just to say, hey, if you did have to go do something unique and different that was creative there, hey, we may give an edge to something like that. If they did something very novel to be able to do this, we want to be able to encourage innovation.
How is that different than responding to a direct hardship?
Someone did a pivot in their business. The COVID-19 impact caused them to have to pivot their business in a different way, in a major change of how they do business. They had to invest in some new technology or the like. That may make sense. That may have been a good business change for them. We want to support them there.
I think to Cindy's point, that response to direct hardship encompasses everything. Right?
I agree with Cindy.
Yeah.
But if it's direct, it's just impact of COVID, then we're going to have, how is that different than I lost business? I didn't have any revenue.
Yeah. I tend to want to keep in innovation because this is the front facing to somebody looking at it, right? And if somebody, I'm sure that we all think we have innovative ideas, right? So then show it off, right? That's my opinion.
I'm fine with, this is not a big thing. So
I agree with you, Cindy. Put it down lower in the bullet points. So you're not saying that's the number one priority.
Yeah.
Right. But leave that open for,
So a way that might make everyone like it is, response to direct hardship to the entity, including direct expenses occurred to respond to COVID-19. This may also include innovative approaches or innovative expenses that helped the business respond, like some way that basically says this can be your basic stuff, or it could be something unique. We would like to hear about both.
Becky, sorry, I got response to direct hardship to the entity, including direct expenses incurred as a response to COVID-19. What was the latter part?
Including, sorry, I'm trying to look at this on my phone.
I feel like, Becky, you have the answer key somewhere in there.
Response to direct hardship to the entity. Lori, we can wordsmith that. I'm sorry. My eyes are hurting trying to look at it on the screen, but as for the group, it'll be a combination of referencing those direct expenses as well as interest in hearing about innovative approaches to responding to COVID-19.
Yeah, so
I like that wording.
Okay.
Is that just Kim's notes? You're going on?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No.
We all good with that one? Point 2?
Yeah.
All right.
It's always hard to wordsmith things in a committee.
Number 3, approved projects should be completed. I think the question here is whether it's 60 or 90, or do we do end of year? And I think this was a question for you, Becky. Do the funds have to be, I understand we have to distribute them by a certain time, but do they have to be used?
They do.
Okay.
So, yep, I was digging around trying to find any indication of an extension, and I cannot find one. So,
So the recipients must spend the money by December 31st.
that is correct.
Wow.
And let me double check that it's not actually December 30th, but yes, it's end of December.
So approved projects must be completed by December. Blah, blah.
Shouldn't it just be funds must be spent?
There'd be some wonderful New Year's Eve parties going on.
Yeah, that would make it easy, right?
Lori, those comments don't go in the minutes, do they?
No.
Okay.
Every word.
I didn't know how that worked.
Sorry, Becky, are you still checking on the exact date, or was that December 31st?
Let's go with December 31st for now.
Yeah, I will double check, because there's also there's phrasing about a particular March date that I've seen. I saw it earlier today. I should have written it down. Of essentially, if someone also wants to be putting in for a reimbursement of things that they have already spent money on, there's a particular date in March that it would have to be that date or later.
We put on number 6, we put in March 1st.
Yeah, it may be a different date in March. So I will look up and confirm both of those dates.
Okay, so as opposed to someone turning in receipts for $3,000 of PPE and other things, someone puts in a grant, looks really good, really wordy, the whole 9 yards, get to December 31st, and they didn't pull it off, but they got the money. How do you claw it back?
I don't know how you do it.
You could make it a reimbursement.
Yeah, that's what I think you're going to have to do. Is the project can be completed, they turn in their receipts or whatever validation they have, and then they're compensated. But it's not the fault of anybody, but it's possible something would happen, and somebody slipped through the cracks, and you don't get reimbursed.
Yeah. So if we do not spend the money, we have to hand it back into the county. So if a business didn't spend the money and then we couldn't get the money back from the business, we would still be obligated to send money back to the county. So we would be back to having it have to be covered by town funds, which we obviously want to avoid.
You don't want to do that.
Well, but how is that, if I may ask there? So again, how does the county know? How do we know the grantee spent the money?
I think that's where the receipts come in.
You could be approved for a grant. You have to execute on that grant. You turn those receipts in, and we reimburse them. But I can't see it any other way.
Mm-hmm. I hope we're not creating too much of a bureaucratic nightmare for us.
That sounds like an admin nightmare. Sorry, go ahead, John.
We would never hear the end of it if someone did not execute and the town was on the hook for the money. We would be castigated.
No, I fully agree, John. Is there a legal way that we could set it up so these funds that are dispersed, that they can't show that were spent with expenses, would on January 1, 2021 become a town fee?
You mean then like placing like a lien on someone's property, or what? Where?
I mean, I'm trying to, what clawback options are there? Does a town legally have that we can use?
We would have to really, send them an invoice, but if they ignored it, your only option is, to sue somebody. And even then that's a civil judgment. A lien on a property, you only ever see that money once the property is sold. So it could sit on a property for 2 decades.
Yeah.
We're thinking worst case scenarios here, and this may be the rare exception, but yes, it could happen. But
well, the reimbursement keeps any of that from happening, as far as I can see.
Okay.
From an administrative standpoint, if we outlined, that the company submitted their, a copy of their approved grants, copy of receipts, basically they had to give the package of things into the town, it would then be processed through our finance department as an AP process, where they would just submit a check to them, and then we would debit that out of the $300,000 that we are setting up as a completely separate account to keep it separate from all town funds.
Well,
so
what we're asking then, aren't we? We're asking them to spend the money first, and then we're reimbursing them?
Yes.
So this kind of goes back to that, we're asking them to have skin in the game. They're making the investment themselves, and we're reimbursing them, which is different than a grant.
No, that's how our grants work. Any grant that we have through the federal government or whatnot, we expend the funds and then seek reimbursement. So we feel confident expending the funds because we know that if we comply with the terms of the grant, we'll get the money back. So I guess it's, if a business had to put an expense on their credit card, knowing that the town was good for that cost, presuming that they followed everything, I think we would very quickly be on shaky territory if we just handed them the money and then hoped that they complied. I think that would be worse in a lot of ways.
All right.
I'm fine with doing it the way you're saying. I just want to make sure that we can, how do we capture that here? Or is that not even part of the criteria?
That needs to be part of the criteria that they need to expense out or have already incurred a cost, and then they're reimbursed. And frankly, I think in light of everything, most people have already probably been hit up to this situation, that things are only improving. So the bulk of anybody going after these grants has already expensed out quite a bit of money to begin with.
So do we just add, is it another bullet point that basically says that the funds will be distributed on the basis of receipts provided?
Would just be on a reimbursement basis.
Yeah. Grants are based on reimbursement.
Funds will be dispersed on a reimbursement basis.
Perfect.
So as far as the timeline, what we may want to look at is, yes, you can technically expend the funds by, let's just say December 31st. But what I want to try to dig into quickly is, do you have to have already be able to have shown that on paper by December 31st? Or is it okay then if they're not submitting receipts, say then into January, and then, we need about a week to process it through AP? I guess what I don't want is somebody coming in on the 31st with receipts and we say, oh, so sorry, because we can't process it in time, you're no longer eligible. So let me dig into that. We may need to back up the December 31st, maybe to December 15th, or something that just your project needs to be completed and your receipts need to be submitted by, and just pick a date that still gives us a little bit of time to process.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
idea.
fine with December 1st, and then let you change it with it, because you understand what the spirit is of what we're trying to do. I mean,
Yeah.
is anybody okay with that?
Yes.
Okay. Grants cannot be used to replace lost revenue. I think we saw that. Grants may not be
That's a
used.
criteria on how we got this 300,000. It seems like we need to say it here.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Anybody, well, I don't think we have a choice. We have to have that in there. Grants may not use to make payroll. Is there a better word than make payroll?
Fund payroll.
Yeah.
Again, these are my notes here. I don't think I said,
Yeah.
I don't know if I said make payroll, but I may have said it that way. But it's, my thought was if you got PPP, that was what that was intended for, and this is intended for something else. But
yeah. Anybody have a problem with that? I'm fine with having that in there. Anybody have a? No. All right. Whoop. Grants may be used to reimburse expenses already incurred since March 1. I think just get rid of the say, and because I think we're all on the same page on that one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question because I don't understand something. When we say grants may not be used to fund payroll, is that in the future? Or can we reimburse somebody who it can't be used for payroll at all?
I don't,
Correct. So you want to just say for payroll expenses?
I like that better.
Yeah.
But
And that makes it more obvious than it's at any time.
Okay.
So the period is March 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020.
Okay.
And then
But
this
the town needs timed, right?
This is directly from the Department of Treasury.
Oh.
So I think we should be safe. And again, we'll submit this to the county. So if that doesn't fit with where the county is on this, they can tell us that.
all right, don't we need to say grants may be used to reimburse expenses already incurred since, never mind, I read it wrong.
Yeah, so were incurred during the period that begins March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 30th, 2020. And then, never mind. This other stipulation on the Treasury website doesn't apply. Never mind. I'm good.
Do you want to just make this last one to say reimburse expenses incurred between March 1st and December 30th?
Sure. Yep.
When do they have to submit the receipts by, though? Or you're going to update that?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me look at a calendar. I mean, I'm okay also having receipts due on the 30th or, maybe the 31st. That's a Thursday. We are open on the 31st. It's the 1st that we're closed. So that is a business day for us on the 31st.
Say the receipts must be submitted by close of business on December 30th.
I wonder if we shouldn't just make it earlier. And then if somebody calls and is in a panic because of something happened, we can say, okay, you can have a little bit of an extension.
So we are closed on the 24th and 25th. So the last business day the week prior is the 23rd.
Yes.
I like that, Cindy. We'll inevitably get some of those phone calls.
Well, I mean, it's going to happen. You know, it's going to happen.
Yeah,
And then,
sure.
you know, then we have to say, no, you can't. And this way we go, okay, but this is a drop dead date. If you don't get it in by then, you're not getting the money.
Those are the same people who are doing their Christmas shopping at Walgreens on Christmas Eve.
Exactly.
And it could still be expenses incurred through the 30th. So as an example, you know, a Zoom subscription, you know, if somebody has a monthly expense, it could still cover the month of December. They would just need to have paid it before that time and submitted the receipt to us, say,
All right.
by
So
the
then
23rd.
we say, sorry to interrupt you, grants may be used to reimburse expenses paid between March 1st and December 30th or something like that. I'm not, am I making sense?
Yeah.
So we do need to correct number 4 then, because it says approved projects must be completed and receipts submitted. Are we just lopping off this first portion? The projects must be completed part is what I'm specifically referencing.
I think number 7 covers what we were starting to try to say in number 4.
We just get rid of it.
For the first half.
Yeah.
The first half. So
we could just lopping that
Get
part
rid of
off.
it completely.
Yeah. So in chronological order, you'd probably want to list the contents of number 7 before the contents of number 4. Perfect.
We'll clean up the language on those.
Well, and I know I'm nitpicking here, but if it's expenses paid, then they have to pay them by December 31st in order for them to give us a receipt. So it seems to me that maybe we just say December 23rd, and then if somebody calls up in a panic, you know, I mean, if somebody says, oh my gosh, my bill's not due to the 28th, you go, well, pay it on the 23rd, and then we can reimburse you. If you say grants may be used to reimburse expenses paid between March 1st and December 30th, then it's saying they can pay it up until December 30th, but it has to be submitted by December 23rd. That kind of contradicts.
Yeah.
I think to keep it clean, we just say receipts must be submitted by December 23rd. And
What if we
for
were
expenses beginning March 1st or something like that, not worry about that December 30th.
Yeah, because really the spirit of number 4 is grants may be used to reimburse expenses paid starting March 1st. Full stop.
Perfect. Right? Better. That's better. Yes.
Because then the receipt stuff at the end is.
It's just, starting March 1st, period, December, 2020. And then the next one, receipts have to be submitted by.
Is that consensus?
We do need an end date. So as an example, you know, somebody could come in and buy, you know, 2 years worth of a subscription to something that extends them beyond December 30th. We can only cover the portion of that subscription that occurs from the March 1 through the December 30th. So we do need to figure out how to put an end date in there somewhere.
That really needs to go back to incurred, then not paid between.
Yeah, I think incurred.
I was going to say I'd add the word eligible expenses, reimburse eligible expenses incurred between March 1st and December. And do you want to say December 30th still, or do you want to say December 23rd? If be submitted by December 23rd.
Cindy, if it drives you nuts the way that it looks right now, we just keep it as the 23rd
I think we should. I think we should.
fine.
And then,
That's
I mean,
fine.
leave it up to the creativity of someone to call you and go, hey, I've got my Spectrum bill that covers my internet and it's not due till the 28th, but if I pay it on the 20th, can I get reimbursed? And the answer would be yes. I'm just trying to avoid something happening on December 30th and then we lose the money because of the way this is phrased.
I think we've matched. Are we good with, or did you, what was that right?
I think we got it here.
We're good.
You're good, Sandy?
Mhm.
Are we there where you're thumbs up? Okay. All right. The next part was Randy's notes of, we possibly could, I think when we do make it up in pretty like the facade grant, I think we could include a section on examples of usage. I'd suggest if you guys have other ideas of examples of usage, send those in to Lori, and because I'm assuming, Lori, that we can use staff to make it pretty, right? And the brochure, okay. So if you guys have other examples of usage, we won't go through them now. Just email them to Lori, if that's okay, Lori. All right, the application. Basically, if you at the top, if there's other things to add in, I trust Becky or Lori that need in terms of who it is that's applying, and that solves the question of the things that we have up above. Just go ahead and add them. The bulk of what I want to go over and make sure that there weren't any questions or things to add were in terms of being able to review these. What does the business or nonprofit do or offer? How we need to ask, how has it affected you, and what adaptations and innovations, or you can get rid of innovations if that's not the right word, have been made since March 1st in response. And everything is basically captured in there in terms of in response to.
Maybe put what adaptations or innovations.
Sure. Yep. Okay. And so the first question is, what have you done since March 1st up till now? And then what's your plan moving forward, if anything's moving forward? Do you know the other one? I think, yeah, another one had this question in there. Do you do you know how to, do you have the capacity to make this happen? Like if we give you the funds and it's something in the future.
You can eliminate.
We're not doing that now because we're only giving them on receipts that have come in.
Yeah, but if somebody comes in and says, I want $10,000 to put in, some wild and crazy idea, we've in essence earmarked that 10 grand for them, right?
But if they can't reimburse, if they can't show the expenses for it, it moves on.
Yeah, but on this, when do we know that?
Well,
December 23rd.
We're reimbursing them. So the fact that the goal or the function has to be completed successfully before they get reimbursed.
No, I understand that. But if we all know, like, I'm going to make an extreme example, that they're saying, I'm going to make this wild and crazy new app that does something crazy and it checks COVID or whatever. And we're all like that. This guy's insane. There's no way that's going to happen. Where they don't have the capacity to do it. We've just earmarked 10,000 for something that
we
I
want
think
to
it's fair to have this question in here. Go ahead, Cindy.
Specifically describe the steps you are going to take to implement. I'm starting this, but you get where I'm going with it. Just describe the steps you will take. We're going to have to wordsmith it all. We'll take to implement
Your
the
adaptation or
process
innovation.
or the process. I'm searching for words here, but
I think the reason for that question is just to make sure that just because you have the money doesn't mean I can do whatever I want, right?
I think it's an excellent question.
I think so too.
It forces them to think through what they're gonna, when they're applying for it, it forces the person to think through all right, I get $10,000 to do this thing I'm going to say, but how am I going to implement it?
I would take out the question you've added, Steve, and just leave the statement, the statement that Lori's written in, because someone could just answer the question. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's right.
So describe the steps you have taken or
You
plan
will
to
to-
take.
Or will to,
You have
plan
or
to
will take.
You-
Is this
Yeah.
how Congress writes laws? What we're doing here?
No.
And
Steps you
and-
have or will take
you
to
have taken or will take.
appropriately use the grant money awarded.
And I would simplify it just a little
Yeah.
bit to say, describe the steps you have taken or will take. I had it. Sorry.
To appropriately implement.
To implement your planned use of funds.
Perfect.
Bingo.
I'm going to defer to the group, but I just, what if it doesn't work? He says I can cure COVID. Give me 10 grand, and it doesn't work.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying about, because then we've earmarked 10 grand that we're not going to pass out.
Well, but this person is expecting it. Maybe I'm confusing myself, but it's sort of like you're saying we're not earmarking anything. This person, are you saying you're going to give this person 10 grand on what he will do as opposed to has done?
Well, I thought we said we were going to reimburse them based on receipts. Right?
To John's point, we would make the grant. We would say, you have our blessing if you do this and turn in the expense report.
Right.
So we may not grant that outrageous claim, John,
Right.
to begin with. But if they have a reasonable claim that they are yet to do, we may grant it, but we're not going to actually give them the money till they show us the receipts.
Correct. That logic makes more sense to me. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So
The interesting battle is going to be somebody says, I pulled it off, and we turn around and said, no, you didn't pull it off. But you know what? I'm going to bank on the side that this is going to go a lot quicker and easier than we think.
Yeah, there's some risk here in this. That's why essentially some of these grants and so on have just been saying, here's money.
Yeah.
and that's kind of,
See no evil, hear no evil.
Yeah.
And we're trying to be more accountable. And I think in local grants, you can afford to be more accountable.
I agree.
What about if we went back to describe the steps you have taken and we do say something like describe the steps and the timeline you will take to implement your planned use of funds?
I don't know that we need to add another variable to the, I'm not against adding it, but I'm thinking of simplicity. If we,
Well, we have that 2 questions down. What's your timeline to implement?
yeah, what's your timeline to implement? 3 questions down.
23rd.
All right.
And then the next one was, I believe, from reading the application from, I can't remember which one of those 2 it was. That's where the skin in the game thing is coming from, right? So that it's not, I'm expecting 10 grand from the town of Matthews and I'm not putting anything in. Or saying I'm going to get $110,000 project. I'm going to get $100,000 from Uncle Louie, and you guys are given 10, and then it fails because Uncle Louie died from COVID and
Yeah.
didn't fund it, right?
Steve.
It's getting late. Sorry.
Well, and part of the review process is being able to call somebody up and say, hey, we don't understand this part.
Yeah.
You have to, could you please explain it to us and then follow it up with an email?
Yeah.
But I will say, if a small business spent $2,000 on hand sanitizer and plastic and masks and whatnot, I thought from prior conversations that we would be okay reimbursing them for the entire $2,000. We're not saying,
Absolutely.
okay. All right. So it's not okay. You still have to have something that you pay for. We would cover it if it was up to 10,000. Okay. Just want to make sure we're still on the same page.
I mean, this is if I'm going to come up with a heliport for Matthews because nobody's going to fly airlines anymore. So I need $75 million, and out of that 10,000 is from you. And we just earmarked $10,000 out of the 300 that we know won't. I mean, it's just so we know where the other parts of it are coming from.
Sure.
Any problems with this one or the timeline? Or I think Cindy brought up timeline, and so that was in there. And then the last one is kind of the kicker. How will we measure this? Or do they have in mind what will success look like of the project?
Could I go back for a minute just to something picky? How much will it cost? How much are you requesting? If necessary, how will you fund the difference?
Okay. Yep.
If
applicable.
Yes.
If applicable. That sounds that's even better. That's what I like about storyboarding, we all.
All right. Can we go back down to the next one? Timeline, are we good with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Tangible measurables can be expected once the project is complete. That will signify success. And then,
is that what you mean, measurables? What
Yeah.
tangible measurable can be?
Tangible, measurable.
I think it would be tangible measure.
I'm having a hard time understanding this.
okay,
What tangible results?
sure.
That's what we mean?
Or
Yeah, that's a
or
better
should the
word.
applicant propose? I just had it and now I've lost it. I'll come back.
I like results.
Yeah.
The measures.
And I don't think we need tangible. I just think what results can be expected once the project is complete, period.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The next part was just where they would. This is on one of their pages. One of their applications had where the income is coming from, like the grant program or other funding sources, and then also I don't know that we need to include this in there. It was just one of the other grants. That's what they asked for.
Well, I'm not sure I looked at this as closely as I should. I'm just going to go back to a comment I said earlier. Anything we do to make the applicant think through what they're doing will be better for us and for them. So if filling out money forces them to think it through, I mean, I didn't look at this in the sense of, okay, does it address what we want it to address? But I think they have to think through the money part. I mean, we're asking them, how are you going to fund the difference? Well, they have to think that through, but they have to think it through in dollars and cents, not just saying, I think it's going to cost $10,000, $15,000, and I'm getting 5 from here.
You and I are on the same page, Cindy. Yeah. Are there any detractors from that opinion?
No.
What would be a projected? Why would you not just have a actual and or projected expense for category, and that would be it. Because that's all we're talking about is expenses, and then they would have the ask for the amount on the grant. Would either be the amount for well, it have to be the amount for reimbursement. So they would just spell out, here's my expenses, A, B, C, D, E, total amount, requested amount from grant is up to X. What I don't understand why the income part is on the table.
Well, don't get caught up with income. It's more where are you getting the money from to fund the project as opposed to income. Like,
is that our concern?
That's what?
Is that our concern where they're getting the funding from to do the project? All we're concerned about is reimbursing them. Is that not?
Yeah, I think simplifying might, as John said, I might remove that part of it there, the revenue or income side. It may be confusing at worst here, but main thing is what's this project going to or has already cost you in expenses, so we know whether we are covering it and to what extent we're covering it.
But I think this also encapsulates any other funding sources, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And any other expenses that are going on, right? So if it's a larger project, then if you have a school or COS kids, if you're going to add another wing, or I'm making it up, right? Or if they're going to bring in mobile classrooms, which is far more than the 10,000.
Instead of using this, and I'm not even sure I like this idea, but I'm throwing it out for discussion purposes. In your application, include other funding sources and expenses, something like that, where we ask them to show us how much money it's going to cost and how they're going to pay for it, other than the $10,000 if need be.
We actually have that question. If you scroll up,
okay.
I think, yeah. If you,
I remember
how
that
much you're
question.
requesting, how you fund the difference.
I know. I just think, we need a little more. Let me think about it for a second.
And actually, back to the results, back to the last question, I regained my thought. That seems a little open-ended. What if we ask them to identify 5 metrics for success, to prove success, or to, show success? So that's kind of a mushy still question. And we say that metrics that we can judge them against, like we expect to, stay in business. We expect to, see revenues at least even with 2019. We expect, in a normal grant, you usually propose metrics. And then as you report in on your grant, you say, for my days, running an arts organization, if you give us this money and we can do this, then we expect to have an increased audience of Y number of people and things like that. So have them identify the metrics that we're going to judge them against.
I'm fine with that. I could go either way. My thought is we want something in there where they're identifying what the measurables are, whatever results, whatever, or metrics, however you want to word it, so that we have in our minds, we can go back to this come spring and say, hey, this is what we've done, right? You go back to them during those interviews or what have you and say, have these occurred? And it also, but what the wording is, I could go either way. I like the way that what the results can be expected once it's complete, because that's kind of open. But
one of the things I want to go back to this cost thing, and nowhere in this whole thing do we expect, we say how much will it cost. What about something like, and we can get back to the metrics, please provide a budget. Do we not want some type of budget if they're getting? maybe I'm getting too picky. I mean, maybe they just need $10,000 for one thing and there's no budget. It's like we're asking $10,000 to put up plastic barriers between all of the booths in a beauty salon per state requirement or something like that.
From a transparency standpoint, I do agree with where Cindy, I think you're trying to go with this.
Yeah.
Just making sure that we've got a clear picture of, is our funding completely covering it? Or if it's not, just where do those additional funds come from? And if somebody just says personal savings, okay, but we at least ask the question to make sure that they've got it covered and figured out. That I think also helps make sure if they say, oh, it's going to be, PPP funds, as an example, making sure that that's an allowable combination of funding sources, and that the government, federal government, doesn't actually say that that's not allowed. Well, then we would have to say, you're going to have to come up with another funding source in that kind of a situation. So I do think asking that question from a transparency standpoint is pretty important.
Do you want that question in the narrative, or do you want to use Steve's template on down towards the bottom of the page there?
Or could we do both?
I don't personally have a preference, as long as that's really the will of the group.
Can you scroll up again, please?
How
Just
far?
a little bit. Yeah.
Hey, Lori, can we move Brett to be a panelist so he can give input?
Oh, he was. Hang on. He must have gotten bounced.
Can we, would it make sense to, instead of saying how much will it cost, document the costs? Up where we said how much will it cost, document I'm just asking. I'm trying to get more specific unless we want to use the grid below.
What if we use both?
That's fine. Well, what if, and this is just a suggestion, what if we used both, saying that this is an option, but you can do it another way? In another Excel spreadsheet or something, it's like, this is a guide.
Yeah.
Document the costs.
Like this is a sample? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So document costs.
Yes.
Do you want the rest of that phrase here at all, or no?
Or I don't think she was saying to change that, were you?
Well, I like the word document, frankly, but I'm not, like I said, it's not a big thing.
Okay. Yeah.
You guys, by consensus, tell me what you want it to be.
I don't think anybody cares, Lori, so you get to decide.
I don't see the difference between document the cost or how much will it cost.
That's why we can't decide.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to document with the receipts in the end.
Yeah.
But,
I think I got it.
related to this, do we care if someone already received a grant or a loan to do whatever project they are requesting reimbursement for here?
I don't think so.
Can I just go back? I'm
Allow
sorry.
them to get paid twice.
I'm sorry. I know I'm going to be a stickler on this, but I do like document better.
Okay.
Because I think it's going to cost $5,000. That's why I need it. On the other hand, if you have to document how much it costs. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. No, I think
So back
Randy,
to my point, yeah, go ahead, Steve.
to your point, I think down below, that's where the budget comes in. So you can't say that you're doing it for the total for the total
Then
income
I
and the
think
total
we
expense.
leave that in
That's
there.
equal.
I think we leave that in there, but I also think we have to have a contact person if somebody has questions.
That'll be
Becky, you think we're okay here, and have others in other grant programs, have they asked the question, have you received any other grant for this very same project?
A lot of them do ask that, or they just have language that prohibits, nicely worded, but prohibits double dipping. So
Did
one or the other.
Did I include the fine print on the one that I sent out to you guys way down at the bottom? No, I didn't.
I don't think so.
I copied and pasted from them all the legal language. I know that was in there. It was all the legalese stuff. I think I have it in a file I can send.
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if we had something in there that essentially prohibited the double dipping.
Yeah, and that was in a a different document.
I know there are some nonprofits that have received grants already for some things they do and have had to adapt to under COVID-19. And I mean, I don't feel right if we're going to make them give you another $10,000 for the same thing someone else already gave you $10,000 for. And we may be having to take them off their word, but I want to be able to say we asked the question.
I'll send this the terms of application from one of them, because I'd imagine this has to go by an attorney anyway, right? I mean, I would think. Who do I?
You can.
Or I'll get this to you, Lori. I don't have email on this computer.
Okay. Go ahead and send it to me when you can.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to go back to these two items that were highlighted? I didn't hear a final answer on this.
I'm concerned that 5 metrics is a lot. If someone is saying face masks and hand sanitizer, the metric and
that was a completely random number.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about just metrics in general and not have a number?
Why don't we make those two together? Remove the 5. So what results can be expected once the project is complete? ? Identify metrics to show success. All on the same line.
Yeah, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
What a team. Teamwork makes the dream work.
All right, we're going to bounce back to our budget template here. I don't think.
All right, do we include this or not? Or do we at the top?
Not including the income side.
What's that? You don't think we should?
I would lean towards, yeah. I think it's more, we're more focused on what are your expenses? That's what we're asking to reimburse.
Except one of them is, how do I say it?
Go, Steve. Tell me. I'm
So if we were, I'll use Sweetwater as as one of them. We hired on 7 more people to reconfigure the warehouse as part of it. And one of the incomes from that was from the PPP. We used, we bought 15 to 20 more carts so that pickers could be socially distanced from, and that could be what this is from, right? So breaking out the overall thing, what we did to make changes, one came from PPP, one came from in spelling out where these things are coming in. So overall, the project as a whole would be there, but the, $2,000 that I'm asking from Matthews, and again, for the record, I'm not applying because I can't, would be, so it's spelled out where the sources for the larger project are coming from so that we're not double dipping. It would be, declared here, as well as, hey, this is what I think I'm going to use in the future, and I have, and here's where I will be in the future.
Okay, I'm good with it. Let's leave it in there.
Can we change that to sample project budget at the top?
Yeah, that's what I think.
There you go.
Perfect.
I like that.
Okay.
All right, everybody good with that?
Phew. Well, thank you, team.
Hang on. Actually, I have a question. So going back to your example, Steve, are you intending, or is EDEC intending to exclude, say, EDEC members, town employees, anybody else that is involved in this process from receiving a grant?
Well, that wasn't the reason I said that. I don't have a business in Matthews.
I'm asking for real
Oh.
in general, not you specifically.
Okay.
I would definitely require that EDEC members should not be eligible for anything here.
Oh, there goes my startup project.
Yeah, you had to start it before January 1st.
And actually, I agree with that. This question is not for that. That just brought up an interesting question. So speaking of my state, Secretary of State articles of incorporation, the address on my articles of incorporation are my home address, which is in Matthews. However, and for the brief time that we did not have, an office, we were working out of Matthews and Fort Mill and wherever my employees live. But we're going back now to an office in Charlotte. Am I a Matthews company? I mean, I'm just saying, and again, this is a hypothetical. Since I'm incorporated in Matthews, my articles of incorporation say Matthews, but my office is in Charlotte. What do we do with that person?
Are you headquartered, or do you have a location within the town limits of Matthews?
So my documents with the Secretary of State from 8 years ago when we created the agency have always just said 1212 home place because it was easier to do it there. Now, so for instance, I've always paid my property taxes for for the business property to the city of Charlotte.
Well,
it's all physically located in Charlotte.
On your Secretary of State filings, you have to say where your headquarters is.
Right. So that actually technically is my home address.
Then you're
not my office.
Then
it's on your tax return also.
Yeah.
What's on your tax return?
Yeah. And again, I'm just asking for the person like Kelso Communications that decides to do that, even because I would argue that's a little really fuzzy as to whether Matthews should be giving me anything, given that I pay most of my taxes to Charlotte.
Well, should we be asking on the application the location of your business? I mean, we have that, right? We're saying
we don't. We're going to add that.
We have in there. We say it's only Matthews businesses.
Now, if
we have only businesses, but we're not asking what the address of their business is, and I think we need to add
we
that.
will be adding that in here.
Okay, all right.
But I guess the word that we should add is not just address, but physical address.
Yes.
Well, that would be location, right?
I'd say physical. I feel again, and this is very much just how it hits me, obviously. But the minute you ask me what the physical address is of my agency, all of a sudden I'm not going to tell you 1212 Home Place. I'm going to tell you blah, 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 South Boulevard.
I think my only retort would be if you were considering this, the fact that you have a business that on your Secretary of State filing says it's headquartered in Matthews, you're eligible. Whether you choose to do it or not, I mean.
I guess the flip to that, Steve, though, is if she pays taxes, and Marcy, I'm not picking on you, but if you, sure. Because if she pays taxes to Charlotte, then, but it's, Matthews having procured this pot of money to help Matthews businesses, ideally, we want businesses to thrive, but we also want them to thrive so that we continue to get tax revenue from them. We're not seeing tax revenue from a business like the way that Marcy's describing hers.
Yeah.
So
she also is ineligible to get the one in Charlotte.
By Charlotte.
I think you're ineligible for Charlotte.
See, I would argue that I am eligible for Charlotte.
Yeah, I think I'm with Becky on that one. I think that's why we're asking for their physical address in Charlotte.
Okay.
Or in Matthews. Yeah.
Yep.
But how does that differ from headquarter to have a location within?
I'm paying, so all my computers for, probably the most expensive thing I own, being
No,
an
but I mean,
advertising
let's
agency,
go
are
back to-
computers and software. And I pay all that money to the city of Charlotte, all the taxes on that. And I pay the taxes, my part of my rent are my are the property taxes on the space. All that
Sure.
goes to Charlotte. The only thing I pay to Matthews is what I pay as a citizen of Matthews, my real estate taxes on
Sure.
my house and the cars and things like that.
So
I think
eligibility
for
could,
fear of splitting hairs, how would you change that, on a way that we can prove it, right?
so
They have
business,
physical location.
Business
but-
must be located within the town limits of Matthews.
so
Must be
business or
headquartered or have a location.
nonprofit, business or nonprofit
Mm-hmm.
must be physically headquartered or have a location within the town limits of Matthews. Marcy, do you think that answers where you're coming from?
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be, and I would even maybe argue that there's fuzziness because it's important to Matthews that, I stay solvent. Thank goodness we're quite solvent. That's why we're not applying for any of this kind of stuff. But back to, so here's where it gets interesting. Back to the double dip. Could I apply in both places? Could I apply for and I'm just moving my business out of Charlotte Center City to South Boulevard. So actually South Boulevard is included in Center City. Could I apply for the Center City loan and the Matthews loan?
We're saying for a particular project here that you're applying for here, we're going to put in language that says there's no double dipping. We're asking, have you received or applied for a grant for this project anywhere else?
So are you okay? And stop me. This is getting way too into so are you okay with me applying to Charlotte Center City's loan program for new signage for my new office and then applying to Matthews for, the direct mail piece that says, we're so excited to announce our new office?
Those are different projects as you described it in that example.
Correct. I'm just saying, is it okay if I double that? And I would double dip in that I've played the game of physically locating my business in Charlotte while.
Yeah, as we already said that you could have gotten a PPP loan, and we're not going to exclude you from this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Could I
I think,
ask
Marcy,
this?
the bigger question is, in your example, you need to correct your Secretary of State filing. Just because you're doing something incorrectly with the Secretary of State because you've ignored it for 18 years doesn't mean that we should be
right
correcting for this.
Yes, that's that issue. I guess the issue is I'm sure there are other people that are in the same situation.
Can I just bring up this point and maybe this will help solve it? What do we want ultimately? Do we want just businesses that are physically located in Charlotte? And if that is the case, then that's what we put in.
Right, and that's what I'm
Matthews
arguing. I'm arguing we need to at least.
No, I think your point's very good. I think you're bringing up something that I certainly did not think of. And
But
so
doesn't the first line of eligibility answer that question?
I think the headquartered issue is where it's becoming.
Right.
So if you're physically located within the town limits of Matthews, I think that answers all the questions.
yes, it does.
You want to put a date as of that, physically located at the time.
Perfect.
Or within the time span of the application.
Mhm.
Do you want to be
That's right.
more specific about that part or no?
No, I mean, and again, I just want to. I could see somebody scratching their head about because
I think that's an excellent point.
I literally live a block away from Matthews, a block away from Charlotte, where I live. So
I'm fine with Did we solve it by
Yeah.
those corrections? Okay. Any other changes?
I'm going to ask this question. I'm going to ask a question here, great risk, but just I need to throw it out there. Some of the other grants had something to the effect of consideration would be given for women or minority-owned businesses in terms of preferential.
No.
If we're doing lottery, if your
Yeah.
number comes up and you meet the criteria, you
Yeah.
get it, and then we
Yeah.
move on to the next.
Yeah.
I bring it up because a great criticism of PPP and some other loan projects were that people who were underserved or uninformed about how to go about doing these things were left out.
That was specifically related to the underbanked and
Right.
the systemic problems with banking. And
I mean, we're not doing anything that leaves any particular population out. Anybody can apply.
I think the bigger issue, politically, will be making sure we let those people know that the opportunity exists.
And therefore,
Yes.
I asked a related question, and Steve and I had a conversation on this. Should we set aside a portion of the $300,000 for marketing expenses, or Becky, does the town pick up that part of it in promoting this out in the community through advertising? I don't know. It's ads in paper. It's paid advertising on Facebook. It's it seems like there has to be a budget for that, and it's coming either out of the 300K or it's coming out of something else.
So we don't presently have a budget for that. It doesn't mean that we can't. We just don't presently.
I'd suggest, for simplicity, we take it out of the 300, because our ask to the county is for a grant program that we're putting on, and part of that is, for the success of that, is a X amount for marketing it, and then we're going to distribute 300,000 minus X is the intent, right?
That's what I would encourage us to do, to help reach those communities and those business owners that may otherwise be uninformed, ill-informed, or otherwise might just miss the opportunity.
I will
like
say
that.
that does create a whole additional level of review and scrutiny that those funds would have to go through. So we would have to submit a separate plan to the county for advertising and also have them bless that.
But how else would we be getting the word out there?
So the ask could be that EDAC doesn't have a set budget for this year. It was cut, but we did, when we approved our budget, we said, if there is a program or an event that comes up that EDAC wants to put on, go ahead and make that request to the board. So what EDAC could do is make that request to the board. I don't think we're going to have a business summit this year. So say it's $4,000 that EDAC is asking the board to approve out of town funds that we can put towards paid advertising for this. And then we are not necessarily trying to then apply for CARES Act funding to cover those funds, or trying to get reimbursement for CARES Act through CARES Act for those funds. We could, as the town, put that forward and run it through and see if it gets approved. But if it doesn't, then we've got it approved through the town. John, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I'm thinking we have Red Brick's got a positive in its banking account. Maybe there's something we could do through that.
That might be a nice partnership. I guess the only thought would be, if Red Brick's footprint is downtown, do we run into any issues since the reach is beyond that footprint with those dollars?
Extenuating circumstances.
Sure. Okay.
I mean, I just think that would make some sense, and it might get some good play. EDAC formed Red Brick, and we worked synonymously together on things. So why not? Let's see where. Because I don't know what the amount of cost we're talking about. I mean, it didn't take much to put together the facade brochure, but there's probably more newspaper and social media outlet that we had to address.
For fear of croaking when I hear the number, but Marcy, you're our resident marketing expert. What are we looking at for a reasonable budget for a, I don't know, 1 month, 2 month blast to get the information out about this?
So the question is, who are we trying to reach? I mean, it may be, I guess, and here's the challenge with being a town in the middle of a county next to a city is we are attempting to reach the business owners. They might live here, but they might not live here, but their businesses are here. I'm just sitting here, I'm thinking out loud, if the most, cost, prudent thing to do is a direct mail piece to just send to, a list that we could find of businesses and business owners, or is it, would we be able to do, decent targeting digitally on this? It feels to me like this is almost a direct mail.
Could we, I mean, is there that big of a price difference between every address in a zip or a project, or?
You can even, I mean, there are a million different ways you can slice and dice a mailing list. And you pay for the mailing list, but, our mail house, I can say, I want women in 28105 who live in houses that are worth at least $200,000 and whose family incomes are $150,000.
No, what I mean is,
I have business.
Why don't we just put it in every mailbox?
You have business.
I have a list from the county of every registered business in Matthews. It's about 1,500 or so businesses. So we have that. I can get that updated, but that is maybe Corona's skewed my time frames, but it's maybe it's no more than 9 months old. More than 9 months old.
Yeah, then you could, I mean, that's the way to do it. Design a jumbo postcard that looks really nice. Most direct mail people are going to tell you we should do it 2 to 3 times. We could at least do it once. If
we're constraining the mailing and the advertising to a list that we get from the county, are we not doing exactly what the PPP folks are getting lambasted for by skipping minority-owned businesses, women, and those that we just don't know about, but they have a business?
Why would the county not? The county should know about them because we all have to pay taxes to them.
I was going to say, they're not going to be current as per your second bullet point under eligibility if they're not on that list, maybe.
They're only paying taxes if they have property.
Permits from the state. Secretaries.
But that property also includes like the tools taxes that they pay. So in some cases, that is literally a personal computer. Sure. Is the only thing that's registered. So it does not require them to have real estate.
What I'm wondering is,
did the Secretary of State give you everybody with a Matthews?
Then what do you get you, Marcy?
What I'm wondering and that's where it says physically located, and I look at it and I go, oh well, never mind.
What I'm wondering is there a price difference, an appreciable price difference between targeting to 1,500 or whatever that number is, and doing the because the Postal Service has that every mailbox program, right? So
right now, where we have heard loud and clear that the mail is really slow and getting slower, I would say
that doesn't matter. Either one is going to go through the same process, right?
Maybe, depending on how much we want to pay. So what I would say is I think I don't think we want to waste. There'd be a lot of wasted paper in that and a lot of wasted postage. I think if we could get some decent lists, like the 1,500, and it'd be interesting to kind of maybe, look at the 1,500 and see if we can see, if it should be glaringly, one would think it might be glaringly obvious if it's the usual suspects. See what we can get from the Secretary of State. And, a nice postcard with processing and mailing is like 50 to 75 cents a pop, with postage, with processing, with all that fun stuff, and printing. So, and if we did do it by best practices and do it, let's say we can get it to 1,500 addresses, we can do it twice, then, a $3,000 or $4,000 budget could do it.
Okay. My only concern is, to Randy's original point, that the minorities and women-owned businesses were not prevented from using PPP. They got crushed because of the notion that they weren't told about it.
Well,
they didn't have access to it.
The biggest thing they did, they got, again, back to, I think somebody else made this point too. The big problem is I have a very wide and very deep banking relationship with Wells Fargo. And it was very easy for me to apply to them because they know me upside down, inside out, whatever. And there were a lot of people, out there like that had long established relationships with Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or whomever else. And what they were able to do is they were able to get on the phone to their friendly banker that they talked to all the time.
No, I understand, Marcy, but
yeah. But in the minorities,
that's
just didn't
for
have
the
those banking
underbanked.
relationships.
Well, what's coming out of the woodwork now? And I don't think we should have anything in there in terms of either we will choose one over the other. I think that's not. I don't buy that. But to Randy's point, my only concern is, do we have, from a political perspective, in 6 months' time, do we have people in town saying, I never heard about this? Well,
and there are two ways to do it, because like the Foundation for the Carolinas, with their fund, I know for a fact that they have purposely reached out to leaders in the minority community. And that's a whole nother thing that could be done. I don't know what the human capacity is, but for instance, who is there somebody out there that could reach out to the leadership in the Crestdale community and say to the Civic League leader in Crestdale, we've got this program. We would love to solicit your assistance in ensuring that the Crestdale residents that might be eligible know about this existence.
And that's kind of why I was asking, is there an appreciable price difference between putting it in every single mailbox versus the 1,500, so we can stand back and say, hey, we did everybody?
Steve, it really won't matter, because when we do an effort, we always get somebody that says, I didn't know, and we mailing, social media.
Yeah.
And what I can say is that we can add social media via the town. We could put an ad in the Matthews Minute Weekly if that helps. We can get SOC to do a piece, a good faith piece out there in the public. But in the end, we always end up with, I never knew, I didn't find out.
Okay.
And
then people get the postcard and they don't look at it and they go, I never got the postcard.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm not just suggesting the postcards to home, but I'm saying we need to make an effort that we're getting the word out there, then that we made a best effort at doing so to all communities, because I do not want this to be something where grantees were those who were the well-connected and they heard it from one of us or indirectly from one of us about it, and they're the ones who got in line first.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do we move forward, Marcy, with that, with getting that list together,
I got a list from the county. I can ask them to provide a new list.
Okay. From a timing perspective, are we putting the cart before the horse? Is that something that we can cover at the September regular meeting with finalizing that and the marketing, or do we need to start marketing before that? Because we still have to get this approved and stuff.
We really should not market until we have a green light from the county. So we've got a couple steps in front of us. One is to bring this to the town board as an FYI at the next meeting, which I did want to check and see, Steve or Randy, if you're interested in doing that. Otherwise, I can do that. So
I don't mind doing. I mean, or John, you're if I show up and do it, or if Becky, which one floats easier?
I mean, I think it would be nice to have it come from you, Steve, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not that we hear from Becky a lot, but there's a difference when there's someone sitting on the dais or they're on staff as opposed to the general public.
I'm happy to do it.
It's a good opportunity for EDAC as well, to hear from EDAC. So, so Steve, appreciate that. So you can handle that at the next board meeting. Make sure that there's no major hangups from the board perspective, and then we can get it shipped off to the county. And really, we're going to need their blessing, because a big concern, as an example, is if they kick nonprofits, and we have spent a lot of time and energy letting nonprofits know that this is something that's available to them, having to try to back that up is going to be a nightmare. So we really need to wait for them to come back and say, yes, this criteria is good, eligibility is good. And then, we can have a draft of that postcard and have everything in it. And then if the county comes back and says, you need to take X out, then the draft can just be edited. But then is otherwise ready to go, pending that approval, so that there isn't a big delay at that point.
What is that next meeting on Monday? 28th?
It is on Monday. Yes.
Okay.
Are we allowing religious organizations to come under the nonprofit?
They are nonprofits.
And a lot of religious organizations got PPP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd say let's leave it how it is, and let's.
I did want to ask you, we didn't actually finish this conversation. So you don't want EDAC members to be eligible, right?
Was that where we started with this rabbit trail? Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think EDAC members should not be eligible.
How about elected officials?
And elected officials? John, you cool with that? You're mute, my friend.
Consensus?
You're muted, buddy. John, you're muted.
Oh, yeah. No, we're always left out. That's why politicians are so corrupt.
Town employees?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else we haven't thought of?
What about other board and committee members?
I was thinking about that. That's a lot of people.
I know.
And add current EDAC member. I was assuming we're talking about only current EDAC members. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
I don't think we need to add other committees and stuff.
No.
At the end of the day, if we follow through with the lottery, as far as the order in which applications are reviewed, hopefully that goes a ways in insulating. So yes, it could be somebody who is more known, their name happens to come up, but it shouldn't fully land that way if there's a good cross-section of the business community that attempts to take advantage of this program.
Yeah. Okay, step forward. Or Becky, or sorry, not Becky. Are we have what we need to, Lori, for that to be kind of cobbled together into one of those, either the brochure like the facade grant, or are there other areas that we need to?
No, I think we're fine with what we have, so we'll make this look pretty. Are you comfortable with everything that we have right now for your discussion with the board on Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
What I might ask is, Becky, if you're okay, I may reach out to you before that meeting just to get a pep talk, whatever. I've never watched somebody else do it, and I'm not very creative at. Keep
it short and sweet.
I will. And I may get my suit dry cleaned. Whoa.
Wear the shirt and the tie upwards.
Yeah, there you
Don't
go.
stand up.
And bring your mask.
Just use Zoom
Oh.
shirt.
It's all on Zoom, so we're okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a Zoom meeting.
Yes,
Yes.
it's just a Zoom
Yeah.
meeting.
Boom. Yes. Okay.
And I will send you that data.
Just slip
I'll
the
make my
sport
bed.
coat over your t-shirt.
All right. Anybody have anything else to concerns? Anything?
And this goes down the road, and we don't have to discuss it because it's been a very long meeting, but does anybody have it in mind how we are going to review the applications, who's going to do it, and that type of thing?
I would
I think-
I would suggest that the next meeting is to discuss that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hash that out. Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to? Hey, first though, I want to thank everybody. I know this has taken a long time, and it's 3 weeks in a row now. I've taken up your Wednesdays, but I thank you. I think we can be proud of what we're starting to put together here. And shoot, the fact that we, the only town in Mecklenburg that asked for 300,000, and we're actually doing this. I mean, that's a testament to you guys. So for that, thank you. All right, then anybody want a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Awesome. Second, Lori, tell me I don't have to do a roll call.
I think we're good.
We're good. All right. Cheers, guys. I appreciate everything. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.